Welcome to Handi Quilter Watch and Learn. Today, we're going to do a jelly roll race on the frame. I'm Kim Sandberg, and with me today is...
I'm Kristina Whitney.
And for this episode, we are going to talk about all things jelly roll race, right?
We are. So we had a fun idea with this quilt behind us. Do we want to talk about that for a second?
Let's talk about the quilt behind us.
So this quilt behind us is made with some Handi Quilter fabric, the purple, with our logo.
Exactly. And by the way, we had that specially printed. It's not available, just so everybody knows.
Love the disclaimer.
Yeah.
Okay. So we wanted to make a quilt that's going to be traveling with our trucks to all of the different shows.
Exactly.
And this is going to be an interactive quilt.
Yes.
And we'll get into that at the end of our episode. So I was playing around making that jelly roll quilt and thought, oh, this is a fun technique. We can do this completely on the long arm.
Yeah.
And so we kind of played around with it a little bit. And I've done it with different widths of fabric.
Right.
Like this one was 2.5 inch because it was an actual jelly roll. You have a sample here that's 2.5 inch. This pastel one over here, move that out of the way.
See?
This is one that my grandma had just cut a bunch of strips of fabric.
Should we move this over here? And okay, so backing up just a little bit.
Yes.
For those viewers that don't know, what is a jelly roll race quilt? Because this is a term that gets thrown around a lot in quilting, right? It's a super common quilt, but maybe you don't know exactly what it is. So what is a jelly roll race quilt?
Okay, so you can purchase jelly rolls. It is 2.5 inch strips by the width of fabric that come in a nice little bundle.
Yes.
And you sew each of those strips together. So you've got this really long piece, which this is actually already sewn together. So it's got, like, this is one piece of fabric going all the way around.
So you sew them together on the short end, not on the long end to start with.
Yes.
So it makes just one really, really long strip of fabric.
Yep. And then we're going to take those strips, sew them down, cut off when we get to the end of however long we want it, put another one on, stitch it down, cut it off, and we're just going to keep continuing until we have our finished quilt.
Exactly. So it's a really fun, easy quilt to make. There's a lot of different ways to do that. And of course, you know, Kristina wanted to do one on the frame. So let's talk about, I know that this weekend, she came into work today and was like, look at what I made over the weekend. So she made this one and then she made this one too. So tell us about this one. We can talk about this one.
So this was one that my grandmother had already cut out a whole bunch of rectangles.
Cool.
So this wasn't actually with a jelly roll.
Okay.
This was just shorter sections. But I did the same concept where I stitched them all together, make a really long piece.
Okay.
And then I used the jelly roll process for stitching it down and making it into the full quilt.
Awesome. And this is cute. I think that this would be a fun way to use just leftover pieces because it's all those short ones. It's so cute. I love it.
So you'll notice on this one that the section that I pieced together is horizontal, vertical, straight line, whatever that's called.
Straight from top to bottom.
Whereas the one that's hanging up, I sewed those on the bias, so they're the 45-degree angle. So you've got some different ways to do that there. The one that you've got here, Kim, is just the width of the fabric.
Yep.
So you didn't even sew your strips together to make a really long section. You just put one piece of fabric down, put the next piece of fabric down, and continued on?
Yep, exactly. Okay. And I did this one on a smaller frame, so I didn't have the space to do the longer one, but this one was done that way. And we'll talk about this one more in just a minute. Because there was a little lesson to be learned from this one.
Yeah.
So.
And those are really fun to do for baby quilts.
They are. This one's actually done at like a lap size, so it's just a little bit longer than a baby quilt, but it is. And they're so fast to do like this. This was, I made this one in like an evening, so it's cute.
And with doing the jelly roll, the strips need to be going horizontal to the frame, but that doesn't mean that that's the direction the quilt has to go.
Exactly.
Like the one behind us, they're going vertically.
Yeah.
So you can change whichever direction you want it to be hanging by how you load your backing fabric.
Exactly.
So speaking of backing fabric, we've already got our backing and our batting loaded onto the machine.
Just in the normal way, you didn't do anything special?
Nothing special.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you don't have anything loaded on your front bar because you're not going to be stitching on any of that.
Exactly.
This is just going to be kind of free.
Okay.
Let's talk about some of the supplies we're going to use.
Yes. What do we need besides fabric?
Besides fabric, I love using my ruler base.
Absolutely.
And as we go through the process, you'll see why. It just gives me a little bit more space there to finger massage or finger press the fabric open. So I'm going to hand that to you if you want to pop that on
I'll go
for
ahead
me.
and pop it on the machine. It's like adding a little extra table to your quilting space, which is really, really nice. Okay, so we've got our ruler base on there.
Okay. Another thing that I've got on here is I've got a centering tape here. So it starts at 0.
In the center.
Works its way out to 30.
Okay.
So I want my finished quilt to be 60 by 60.
Okay.
So I'm going to just take a dry erase marker and I'm going to mark on my 30 on the bar.
So you're marking right above where that 30 is on the bar. And the really nice thing with using a dry erase marker is you can just go ahead and erase it when you're done with it.
Yep. And so Kim's going to mark 30 on that other end. And that tells me how wide I need to have all of those strips when I'm sewing.
Cool.
I actually had a little bit of fun when I did this weekend at home, where I took another centering tape, and since I don't have anything on my top pole here, I put a second tape on there.
Did you put it over the top of the leader?
I took my leader off, and then I put it right over top of the Velcro so that I wouldn't get stuck to the Velcro every 5 seconds.
So smart.
I learned my lesson on that one. And then I could mark on both the idle pole as well as the top pole.
Oh, cool.
Then I took it a whole nother step. I was just totally playing around.
I'm guessing it involved masking tape, because this is like Kristina's favorite tool. I feel like this is like your new challenge. Like every quilt you make, you're like, okay, how can I use masking tape on this?
No, I like the pretty colors of the different painter's tape.
You do.
Okay, so here's what I did. I took some painter's tape and I lined it up with the 30. And then I brought it down.
Oh, look at you.
And I lined it up with the 30 on the other pole.
So you're actually sticking that to your idle pole and to the quilt top pole. And keeping that in place. That is brilliant.
Had this nice straight line. And then on the second one, I even got even smarter. And I took some more tape. And I put it over top of the sticky side so I'd quit getting stuck to that.
I was just thinking how nice it would be to actually have that tape there to like put all your little extra threads on, because it would keep them in place. So.
Until you try to advance the quilt and all the threads that are still attached want to go with it.
Yeah, I could see where that would not be awesome.
Yeah.
So I like this.
That's just an option. You could take like a bungee or anything if you wanted to.
Tie a piece of fabric around it?
Yeah, anything would work. That's just what I had on hand because I love my tape.
You always have lots of that on hand.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay, another quick tip before we start stitching is, as I'm stitching along, I don't really know how far down I've gotten.
Right.
Because even though these are 2.5-inch strips, things wiggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to make them a little bit shorter, and we'll get into that. But I like to take a measuring tape and actually mark on the backing over here on the side.
Okay. So where it's going to get trimmed off anyway, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm going to mark up here like my top.
Okay.
And then I like to do 10, and I'll write 10, and then I'll come down
Another 10.
and do another 10.
Okay.
Mark that. And I'll do that as I'm advancing the fabric so that I know when I get to my end goal.
I think that's so smart too, because if you take a break and you come back and you've completely forgotten where you are in the process, you don't end up making the quilt bigger than you wanted to, because that's totally something I would do.
Or way too short because I ran out of fabric.
That was a really, really good idea though. That is great. Yeah. Okay.
Super fun. Okay, another very important tool that we need when we're doing jelly roll quilts are our channel locks. So there are 3 different types of channel locks we can use. We've got the little C-shaped channel locks that you can put on the wheel of your machine to lock it in place.
Right.
And we also have the electromagnetic channel locks that you can put on your different machines from, I believe, the Simply and up.
Yep.
You also have the channel locks that are on Pro Stitcher.
Exactly, and they're both in light and premium. So if you own a Pro Stitcher, you've got channel locks.
Yep.
Which is really great.
So for this video, since I do have a Pro Stitcher on this machine, I'm going to use the channel locks on the Pro Stitcher. But just so you know, there are those other options out there if you do not have Pro Stitcher.
Yep.
Okay, are we ready to quilt?
I think we are. So how do we get started on a jelly roll race quilt? What's the first step?
Well, generally with a quilt, I like to do a plumb line. For this one, I'm not going to bother.
Okay.
I'm just going to do it as I go.
We're just going to get started here. I love this.
Yep. So I want to grab some fabric, and I'll just start from the outside.
Okay. I'll just hold that there.
And it's going to be nice and twisted up.
It's like a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah. So when I was doing this at home by myself, I had a little stool down underneath that I just kept the fabric on so it wouldn't drape and hang down and pull down on my fabric there.
We've actually got one of our trusty stools right here. And so you said you just had it tucked here at the end of the frame and you set the fabric on it. Okay, so I'm going to scoot this back under here and we'll do that same thing. So everybody will know that this little roll here is just going to come and sit right here on the stool. I think it's a great idea because then it's not on the floor. You're keeping it out of the way.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Until you knock it off. But yeah, that's great. Okay.
Okay.
So
I've got
first piece, how do we lay it down?
Right side up.
Right side up.
Yep.
Okay.
And I am going to, my machine's as far back as it can go.
Okay.
So I'm going to take my fabric.
Now, as far back as it can go, what do you mean by that?
In my throat space.
Okay, so it's pushed back as clear up to that take-up pole.
Clear up to that pole. And, I forgot to mention, I've got a square foot on.
Another great tool for this because then you've got your built-in seam gauge essentially.
Exactly, yep. And this is a quarter inch one that I've got.
Okay.
So I'm going to just slide that fabric underneath the foot.
Okay.
And I don't want this stuff to show, so I'm going to slide it underneath my blue tape because that blue tape is going to mark my edge.
So the blue tape's going to end up being like your
where I
would
would trim it. Exactly.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I've got the top of the fabric lined up with the back of that quarter-inch foot. I'm going to bring the foot back over.
Okay.
And bring up my bobbin thread. I should have put some more tape on over there so
little
it doesn't
sticky
stick.
right there.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to do just a couple little walking stitches. And I'm going to turn on my horizontal channel lock.
Okay.
Now, as I'm stitching, I didn't do that plumb line, so this fabric is not lined up straight. So I'm going to manipulate the fabric as I go along to make sure it's staying straight with the foot.
Okay, perfect.
And then I'm going to just disengage my tape. So I've got my lights turned off so it doesn't strobe on the video, but that makes it a little harder to see.
So you're just doing that nice quarter-inch stitch right from the top. And you could be using a larger basting stitch at this point if you wanted to.
Yes. I'm just going to pause for a second.
Okay.
Stretch my fabric out. Do you want to do the other half or do you want me to keep going?
You can keep going for just a little bit and then we can pass off and I can do some stitching.
Can we pass mid-stitch?
Okay.
Are we that cool? Oh, I just totally went off. We're good.
It just totally went off. So we're just keeping it lined up. So this is Quilting with Friends, which we love.
And this will make the next step even more important.
Yeah, we won't look at how much I'm going off there.
The best part though is that we're going to cover it all up. So.
That's exactly. This top edge is going to get trimmed. Okay, now wait a minute. How far am I going? Oh, I'm going to where I marked it over here.
Yep, to that 30.
Right.
Would you like a piece of blue tape?
I'm good. I can see where the line is. Okay, so I'm going to get to the end here.
And I'm going to have you go off maybe like an extra half an inch just to give us a little bit of wiggle room there.
Okay, so I'm there. I'm going to do a couple of locking stitches.
Yep, and then bring up that bobbin.
I'm going to turn off my horizontal channel lock and I'm going to go ahead and bring up my bobbin thread and cut it.
Yep.
Okay, so, and I've got my scissors on my handy little hook here on the side. Okay, so I'll pass it back down to you.
There.
Oh, leave the machine here.
I'm going to do another step.
Okay.
I'm going to have you cut off that fabric.
So am I cutting it just right here where I finished stitching?
I like to have just that little extra wiggle room there.
I like that. I think that's smart. There we go. Okay. So I'll pass those back to you. Now, what's the next step?
So this is where it might get a little bit tricky.
Okay.
So I found that this worked the best for me. And again, this is do what works for you.
Absolutely.
So for the next layer, you can put two down or put the second one on and stitch it at the same time. I found that I have much more success doing this next technique.
Okay.
So let's pop out your quilt real quick
Oh,
and
and let's
show
talk about
what
this.
I'm talking about.
Okay.
Why I'm going to do the next step that I'm going to do.
Okay. So on this quilt, what I did was I came to the end and then I came back and did some stitching just across the top here. You guys can see a little bit of stitching there. And to stabilize it and hold it in place, thinking that that was going to be good enough. Well, I ran into a problem here. Look at this. I have some where things didn't quite line up and I didn't quite catch that edge. So I need to go back and turn that under. So you found a solution for this, right? So this won't happen.
Yep.
So what's the solution?
Okay, I'm going to pop over here to the machine.
Okay.
So what I want to do is I'm going to bring my foot down, and I want to bring it down so it's about like 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
So from the needle to the edge of the foot is 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going about halfway there.
Okay.
I'm going to turn my horizontal channel lock on.
Okay.
And it bumped it up just a little bit. And then as I come back,
So you're not stitching, but you have your channel lock on.
I have my channel lock on.
Okay.
I'm just eyeballing and making sure that if I stitch at that level, everything is going to be, oh look, this is getting pretty
look
close
at that.
right
It's
there.
getting close there.
So what I would do is turn my horizontal channel lock off,
Okay.
bump it up just a tiny bit more, turn it back on, and then continue on.
Okay, I like what you did there. So what you're doing is you're making sure that you're going to catch this edge so you don't end up with that weird little pull aparts like I did.
Exactly.
Much smarter than what I did.
So coming right to left, I didn't do any stitching, but I am going to leave that channel lock on where I had it, and I tested and I made sure that everywhere across is going to catch. So now I've got the channel lock still on, and I'm going to stitch all the way across just through this one layer of fabric.
Okay, so you're stitching down the bottom just to hold everything in place. I like this.
Yep, just to stable.
I really, really like it. Okay. And Kristina's cruising. I love it.
Okay, I'm going to turn my horizontal channel lock off. Kim's going to pull up my bobbin thread for me.
I'm going to actually just pull it over to the side and clip. I realized after the other one, I'm like, I could really just pull it over the side here. Okay.
Okay, so if we look really closely, we'll notice that there's some variation in the distance. The distance there. Like over here, it's really close here, and then further away.
Farther.
But everything has been stitched down.
And it's straight.
And it's straight. So as I bring this next piece over, or sorry, bring the machine back over, I'm going to do kind of a little echo.
Okay.
So just like 1/8 of an inch echo.
Okay.
So from where it was, I'm going to move it up just a tiny bit and turn my horizontal on.
So you're just above that line that you just stitched.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me hand those back to you to put back on the machine.
Thank you much. Okay, now I'm going to take the next section, or continue on. This time I want the right side down.
Okay.
So this is going to be up.
Okay.
And I've got my foot in position where I want it.
Right.
So now I want to line the fabric up to the foot.
Okay.
So I'm going to lift up the foot.
So you're lining it up with the bottom edge of the foot, like the edge of the foot that's closest to you. You're lining up the bottom edge of the fabric, and you're doing essentially right sides together here.
Correct.
Is what you're doing. Okay.
I'm going to pull it underneath my blue.
So, okay. Did you do that little thing where you pop the foot up? You just lifted it up.
It up and slid
just
it
remember
under.
that all of our machines, they are spring loaded like that, and you can actually lift that foot up if you're having a little bit of a problem getting fabric right under there.
Yeah. And that's kind of a thing with the square foot that I have issues with, so I often have to lift it up.
Yep.
I do have some thread here somewhere. There it is.
Oh, there it is. I see it.
Okay. So the key here, the bottom of that second row is lined up with the foot.
Okay.
I don't care about the first row anymore. I'm done with the first row.
Okay.
I'm not going to even try to line anything up with it at all.
Okay.
But I'm going to bring up my bobbin thread.
And once again, you pulled that over just a little bit more to the side so that we're making sure that when we trim everything, it's going to be nice and square.
Correct. Yep.
I love it.
Okay. Horizontal channel lock is on.
Okay.
And we're going to stitch along. And I'm using the edge of the foot to line the fabric up with.
Oh, I love that. And you know, so I know when I've done this before, I've always been like wrangling two loose pieces of fabric at this point, and that's why like I ran into that problem with that other quilt. This is much smarter.
Yeah.
I really
and
like this.
If you look right now, the purple was covering up the white when I started, but now I've got some white showing.
Yep.
But I've guaranteed that I've got everything locked in there.
That way when you wash it, it won't pull apart like mine did.
Yeah.
Very smart.
And if I tried to line the purple up to the white right now, then I would just be continuing that cycle of, okay, the first one wasn't lined up, the second one's going to be off, the third one's going to be off. By the end, I'm not going to be straight at all.
Well, your quilt starts slanting. I've totally run into that. That's where using the channel locks is really great, because everything is, all those lines are, is it perpendicular? Is that the right term? They're perpendicular to each other, meaning that they're the same.
Not perpendicular. Parallel.
Parallel. Parallel. There we go.
Math terms.
Yeah, me and my math terms. Parallel. I knew it started with a P. Parallel to each other, because that's what you want. It will make sure that your quilt is straight, just like the one in the background here. That's why it's so nice and straight.
Yep.
So that's great.
Okay, let's stitch this one down.
I love it.
Oh, I'm going to come to that seam. Oh, okay.
Kristina, you pressed your seams open. You never press your seams open.
I don't know what I was thinking.
So what's your solution for this?
Lift up that foot, slide the fabric back under.
Okay.
That's why I pressed them open.
Okay.
That was a teaching opportunity. I
love
totally planned.
You totally planned that way.
Okay,
Fantastic.
stitching along.
Keeping that fabric up there. Do you want me to take over, or are you gonna?
Okay.
You probably don't trust me to do it at this point.
No, go for it.
You saw what I did with the one that I quilted. Okay.
Okay, so here's a question for you, Kim.
Yeah.
Do you line up to the outer part of the pinked edges or the inner part?
I'm lining up to the outer part. Is that what you did?
I think so.
Okay. I'm like, it seemed like that's the track it was on
So the purple,
when you handed it off.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought, okay.
So the white came pre-cut.
Okay.
The purple I cut. So had to find the difference between the two, like which side to do.
So I'm
just
going to
something
go
for people to
ahead
think
and
about.
bring up that bobbin thread and clip it real quick. And then we'll trim the piece again.
Yep. And I'm not worried about it being perfectly straight on those edges, because we are going to trim it when we're completely done.
Right.
That's why I'm overshooting a little bit, so we've got that wiggle room.
I really like that. Now,
Okay.
you're going to do, okay, so if I remember right, you're going to take and fold this down, but I see you have something in your hand there.
Yes, this is a fun little tool. I don't know its technical name. I call it a little tool.
A little tool. It's a seam presser. It's like a seam roller.
Okay.
Seam roller, right?
Yeah, but this one's got the roller end, and then this just has a straight kind of
That's
edge.
kind of nice.
So I can come up here and just kind of push, or I can roll.
To press that edge.
And this is why I've got the ruler base on. So we're going to just, as I come along, I'm going to put the machine into position.
Here,
remember that kind of,
scooch that.
yeah,
Yep. Those
about
side
an
clamps.
1/8 of an inch off. I'm going to turn my horizontal on.
Okay.
So now as I'm going back, I'm both pressing
So if I push the
and
machine
checking.
and you press.
Okay, we just have to make sure that I'm going to be able to stitch over everything.
Okay, I like this. See, I usually just have my thumb out here where I'm like sliding it along the seam.
Yeah.
That does a much better job.
You can just fingernail
Making
press it
sure-
if you want to.
But I like how you're doing two things here at once. We're making sure that we're catching that edge, which so far we are.
Yep, we're doing
All the
really
way
good on this
across.
one.
That's because I stitched the last little bit of it.
Okay. Anything that goes right, Kim did it.
I did.
Anything Kristina screws up, she's the one that screwed it up.
Okay, we're getting a little bit close right here.
Okay.
Do we need to make
So
that
I'm gonna-
adjustment?
I'm
or
going
do
to
you feel
call
like
that good there, because it's within like about an 1/8 of an inch. So it's
Okay.
going to catch there.
It's still going to catch it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then when I go back and put the next layer on, I'm going to bump it up
You're
just a
gonna bump
little
it
bit
up.
more.
Okay.
So, yep.
Let's move that channel, there, clamp over. Okay, so that's nicely pressed into place, and then you're gonna go ahead and do that next row, just with the stitch to hold it in place.
And I haven't touched my horizontal channel lock. It's in place from where we put it on at that
Right.
side. So we're ready to just stabilize that row.
Okay.
And I like to use my hand and just kind of make sure everything's laying flat.
Yep.
Sometimes if you don't do this step, you'll get some nice little bubbles.
Yeah, I've had that happen before. I don't usually do this step, so.
In the past, I haven't, but I usually do larger row quilts.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass it off to
Okay.
you. But with these smaller pieces, it really helps to keep it all stabilized.
Yeah.
And when you're making a quilt that's going to be traveling around for the whole world to see, you want it to look a little nicer.
You don't want people to walk up and be like, oh, Kristina pieced this one. You'll be all, no, that was the part that Kim did. Okay.
Okay.
So we got that there. We'll go ahead and pass that back.
And you turned off the horizontal channel lock when you're back there.
I did.
So I'm coming back over here and I am moving my channel lock back up just about 1/8 of an inch from what I already stitched.
Okay.
Turn the horizontal channel lock on.
Okay.
Take my fabric, again, right side down, slide it under the square foot, under my blue tape.
Okay.
Make sure you can find your thread tail. And then I'm going to line the edge of the fabric with the edge of the foot.
Perfect.
Bring it back over, needle down, needle up.
And at this point, it just starts becoming rinse and repeat, right?
I was going to say monotonous, but you know, rinse and repeat.
Stitch and repeat.
Yes.
Stitch and repeat.
Yep.
No, that's great.
So I usually do a couple stitches, pause my machine, get everything kind of somewhat lined up.
Okay.
And then I can manipulate the fabric a little easier if it's already pretty close to where I need it. Okay.
Coming up, oh, you went right over the top
I
of
didn't
that
even
seam.
have to stop that time, but I did.
So,
Okay. So my arm's probably in the way.
I was just going to comment on that.
So let's put it over here, see if I can do it this way. You know how you get used to things, you have to do them one way or the other?
Oh, it's so true.
It's like when you get done showering, you have to dry off one leg before the other leg, or it just doesn't work and you're off for the whole day.
Put on the right foot, right shoe in before the left shoe. Yeah.
Okay, it's all you.
Okay. Okay.
I wonder which shoe I put on first. I haven't paid attention to that.
I remember I had a psychology class in college where the professor actually challenged us to pay attention and then put it on differently and see if we could handle it or not. And I remember being like, I don't know, it's just whichever one I grab first.
Well, it's kind of like when I teach a lot of my free motion classes, I have everybody draw a circle, and then I make them do the circle the opposite direction.
Because you got to be able to do it both ways.
Yep.
When you're quilting. Yep. All right, so we got to that in there. We're going to go ahead and flip it down. Kristina's going to get out her awesome little tool. We'll do a little bit of pressing here. A little pressing.
How about you press this time?
Okay.
So I'm going to line this up.
Move my hand.
Turn on my horizontal channel lock.
Okay.
Making sure it's catching.
So I think we're essentially showing people that this is a project that's fun to do with a friend. You talked about it being monotonous. It would definitely help with that part, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is great, though.
Okay, so I think everything got caught when the horizontal channel lock,
so.
that one was a little bit low there.
So you're going to go ahead and do the stitch, and then we'll do this one. So I think let's go through and do a couple more rows and then show how you advance it. I don't know, what's the next step after? Because like we said, it's from here, it's just kind of, let's just keep doing the same thing again and again and again.
Yeah, let's put on, we'll do one more row and then we'll advance it, and then I'll show you how we would finish it when we get to the end.
Perfect, sounds great.
Because it's really hard.
I'm guessing it's kind of like what you're doing right now.
This is how you finish the quilt when you get to the bottom, right here. So if you have an infinity, you can really cruise along here. Oh, I set off the alarm. Okay, it's all you.
I know, I was actually thinking about if you were using Pro Stitcher Premium, you could even use the move feature.
You could. I find that I personally like to have more control.
Over the,
I want to move the
machines,
machine as I'm moving the fabric if I need to do manipulating on it.
You know me.
So
I'm always trying to figure out a way to use Pro Stitcher.
it would work.
Yeah. But, okay. There's the machine back to you.
Okay. Lining it up with my previous stitch line about 1/8 of an inch up from it. Turn on my horizontal. Slide the fabric underneath.
You're doing really good
under
with
the
getting
blue.
that fabric just to slide under there.
Well, I had a little bit of practice this weekend.
That's the real reason why you made so many quilts, huh?
Yeah.
Practice for filming.
I don't want people to think I'm a completely incapable person, just partially. Okay, doing a few stitches here and then kind of stretching it out, making sure it's nice and smooth, and then continuing on. Tag, you're it.
All right. Let's see if I can just, oh, look at me, right over there.
Oh, do you notice I gave it to you earlier?
Yes, I did. You didn't want to deal with that seam, did you? That's okay. I'm not afraid of seams. Okay, coming down to the end there. I'm going to turn off my channel lock and bring up the bobbin. This is the real reason why you're having me do this at this end, because I'm the one who has to bring up the bobbin every time and trim it at the end.
Hey, you said you wanted to stand on that end.
I know. Okay.
Okay.
Trim. Let me cut this really quick. Okay.
So trim,
Trim.
flip, needle position,
Yeah.
about 1/8 of an inch from the edge.
Oh, you're going to have me set the channel lock this time?
Yep.
Let's do that. Okay.
And then give you the tool,
Okay.
and I'll move the machine. Okay, it's pretty close right there.
This end was drooping a little more, so yeah, I think we should maybe move that up just a little. There we go.
My hand probably blocked all of that, so my apologies. Now this step, we haven't had to do much adjusting because all of these were cut so well. Mm-hmm. I cut them, just kidding. They were pre-cut, at least the white was.
The white was?
Yeah.
Oh, whoops, I just fell on the backside of that. Woo!
I did that a little bit. But like the pastel quilt that I did, nothing was perfect. So this step, bringing it back, really helped me to gauge how far down I needed to have the channel lock set.
It made everything so straight and perfect. I think it's such a great, I mean, it takes an extra minute to do it, but definitely worth it, keeping everything straight and square.
Mm-hmm. So this one we're barely catching over here. So with that being said, since it barely caught, when I do my second row, I might bump it up just a tiny more than I normally would have.
Okay.
But
just compensate for that.
Yep.
Grab those threads there. That makes sense.
Okay.
I can see where this would actually be a fun project to do, like with your kids even, or somebody who is new to long arm quilting, because it is super simple. There's no artistic need.
Yep. And if you buy a jelly roll, you don't even have to pick out the fabric. You don't have to do any of the cutting.
No.
So yeah, this is a fun project. Bring the grandkids over, let them make a quilt.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we've done this one here, and our next one we can't get to. We can't stitch, so we need to advance. So any tips for advancing while you're doing this?
First of all, take off your side clamps.
Okay, always a good tip. Always a good tip.
If you do use this tape process, make sure that the threads aren't stuck in the tape.
Okay.
And then we're just going to lift up the ratchet on the backing bar.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
And then start rolling from the top.
Okay.
Now, I do want to mention that for a project like this, you don't want to be working far away. So if you've got a larger frame, you want to try to stay in the closest, like 12 inches.
Yeah.
That will help your back. I know after doing a couple of these on my Forte, I was really starting to feel some not so pleasant pains in my back.
From being in that lovely, like, where you're like,
yeah, because I want to be able to see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So try to keep it close to you.
Not more, so you don't have to really stretch your arms out.
Yep.
Or bend over.
Yeah, so we've advanced the fabric, tightened up the bar, put our side clamps back on. And then we would just continue with that same exact process all the way down. I know that some people might think, oh, just 2 colors of fabric, we're not really getting a whole lot of variation. So if you don't like the 2-tone look, or if you think, oh, those don't line up exactly as those, pick more fabrics.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And that's where using a jelly roll does come in super handy, because there's usually at least like 12, 15, sometimes 20 different fabrics in there. So there's plenty of different fabrics for variety.
And I've even at times taken my jelly rolls, the piece, each strip, and cut them in half.
Oh.
And then I get a little bit more variety.
That's a great idea.
So just play with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can just keep on doing what we've been doing. Can you think of anything that would be helpful for making a jelly roll quilt that we haven't already covered?
I think we've covered all of this. I think the one final thing that you could do here too, if you wanted to, when you get done, go ahead and put binding on. We have videos where we've done that before, showing how to do that on the Longarm. But it's such a fun, easy, make a quilt in an afternoon. You don't have to do, the only stitching you have to do at your sewing machine is just sewing the strips together. Yeah. And that doesn't take that long.
No.
Because it's very short seams.
Yep.
Lots of, I would imagine the hardest part, especially when you're using a solid, is just making sure that you get the wrong side, like right sides together when you stitch.
So one thing that I have noticed is with using these really contrasting, like the white and the purple, sometimes the purple threads, the unraveling show in the white. So if you're really particular about that, you might want to take some extra time, make sure that you've got everything trimmed up really nice. Another thing that I've had people talk to me about is the vertical basting. We haven't been doing any vertical basting, but these are 2 inches apart, so we don't really need to. However, if you were doing a larger row quilt, like I like to use my, the leftover minky pieces that you cut off the sides and bottom when you finish quilting, stitch those together using the same technique. But when it's a larger piece, I do like to do the vertical basting down the side.
That's perfect. So I want to see what this stitching ends up looking like on the back of the quilt. So let's grab that pastel one, the other one you did this weekend, so that everybody can see. When Kristina first showed it to me, I'm like, oh, this is really cool for the quilting, because it's 2 lines very close together, 2 parallel lines very close together. Got the right word that time. It looks so cool, and this really is enough quilting for a quilt like this. Yeah. But if you did want to do some more quilting, when you get done, you could just go ahead and work your way back up through the quilt, do another fun design over it. You could do a pantograph, you could do groovy boards, free motion, a fun pro stitcher edge-to-edge design to dress it up a little bit more. Don't feel like this has to be the final quilting. You could always add more if you want to.
Yeah, can I have a confession moment?
Yes.
So with this one, I actually had intended to practice like a border design in each one of the rows or each block. But when I got to the end, I was so excited to be done that I just trimmed it right off, and then I thought, oh, I forgot. So this is how it's going to be.
This is how it's going to be.
But next one.
This is a great opportunity, like you said, to practice designs for sashings or borders. It's perfect for it. It really is.
And it's very forgiving, so it's a good opportunity, like we said, just to practice, get comfortable with those. Another fun thing that you can do with these, if you don't have jelly rolls and you don't want to cut strips, how many people have leftover binding?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And most of those are like 2.5, 2.25 inches, somewhere around there. Just press those bindings back open, sew them together, and you're ready to go.
You're ready to go. That's actually, I have a whole drawer full of old binding. That might be a great way to use that up. And I do cut my binding usually on the straight of grain, so I don't have to worry about it stretching or anything. Okay. Well, thanks for all the great ideas. This has been really fun. I know when we first talked about this, we were like, okay, jelly roll race, but I think this is actually a really fun project.
So let's tell our viewers our original idea, where we were going to have 2 machines set up and see who could stitch it the fastest.
We were going to have a race.
But then reality set in, and we didn't want to hurt ourselves. We wanted the quilts to look nice.
We didn't want everybody to see our competitive sides come out either, because a little bit of that happens from time to time. So yeah.
Okay.
But let's talk about what we're going to do with these 2 quilts.
I was just going to say, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So we're making 2 of the same quilts. And as Kristina mentioned, they're going to be on the trucks. So let's talk about our trucks.
We've got 2 fantastic trucks.
Yep.
And fantastic truck drivers who drive them all over the country. And each one of the trucks has 12 of our Longarm machines with our education frame, which is set up at 5 feet. And the purpose of these are to go to shows and also to our local retailers to do events where people have the opportunity to take classes and experience these machines, learn new skills, have lots of fun, and decide if that's what they want to do or not.
Yeah.
And it also has all of the machines for our booth that we set up at shows.
Yep.
And that's what these quilts are going to be for. They're going to be hanging up in our booths. So you want to tell them what the purpose is?
So this year we want to invite all of our viewers to come visit us at the Handi Quilter booth at whatever show you happen to go to. I think we were looking, we've got 12 plus shows this year. There's always a few more that come in that we'll be doing with our 2 trucks. And so we want to invite you all to come in and leave us your signature on one of these quilts. So we're actually going to have 2 quilts in each of the booths that you can sign. This would be one that you can do and you'll be able to sign it wherever you want to. We're going to put a little pocket on the back of it and it's going to have markers in it that you can use, and we're going to make sure that those are available so people can come and let us know that they were there. So we're excited to share that and see what kind of a response we get from all of you with that.
So when the quilts are done, they're going to come back to us. And we're going to look at those signatures.
Yes, we are.
And we're going to see who actually came and saw us.
Yes.
So we won't judge anybody.
No, no, no. No handwriting police here, we promise, we promise. But we're excited to have those, and then we'll bring them back. So they're going to be on the trucks for 2023. And then when they come back here to Handi Quilter in 2024, we're going to hang them here at headquarters. And we'll probably have to do a watch and learn and have them, and we can show everybody all the signatures on them. But so be sure and stop by the booth and leave your signature, leave your mark there for us. It'll be fun to see how many we get.
Yep.
So we also would love to see if you give this project a try. Be sure to tag Handi Quilter in any of your posts you do with that. So be sure to use hashtag Handi Quilter. We'd love to see the Jelly Roll Race quilts that you're doing on your quilts. Well, I think we pretty much covered it all.
I think we got it all.
I think we got it all.
If we didn't, leave us a question and we'll answer that for you.
Absolutely. So be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and for more great quilting content, you can always watch all of our videos on our Handi Quilter YouTube channel. And be sure to have fun quilting.